Hey everyone! This week's announcements are that assignments are due Friday like always, and tutorials are 10 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday in Zoom. The link is in Echo in the announcements. And this is my last week giving you guys instructions and being present in those tutorials. It's really sad, but I'm super proud of all of you and the growth is phenomenal. This week you guys are responsible for an assignment that's going to give both myself and you some feedback on vectors and our progress. And then we're going to be transitioning into polar coordinates. So some prior knowledge that you guys should have in your back pocket is the unit circle and how to convert radians to degrees. And then at the end of this week, the student will be able to, or you should be able to, graph polar coordinates and convert rectangular to polar coordinates. From last week, we talked about how our x could be found by taking the magnitude and multiplying it by cosine of theta, which is just our trig that we manipulated. And also, we found that y is the magnitude, or r, times sine of theta. So I went ahead and found that theta, and I did tan inverse of 4 over 3 because tangent is opposite over adjacent. And so the inverse would be tan inverse of 4 over 3. So that gave me a theta of 53.13 degrees. And I went ahead and wrote that vector in component notation as just a quick review. And so here is how it connects to polar coordinates. So rectangular coordinates are x and y, like the regular Cartesian coordinate plane. Polar coordinates are that r value, comma, the theta value. So I wanted to go over some conversion really quick. So in the following assignments, I'm going to ask that all of your thetas be in radians. And in the previous assignments, I asked for theta in degrees. So to get from degrees to radians, you multiply it by pi over 180 because degrees is in the numerator and the denominator. And so that unit of measure is canceled out and you're left with radians. Similarly, if I started with 0.93 radians, I would multiply it by 180 degrees over pi because then the radians unit of measure get canceled out and you're left with degrees. So now, to convert from rectangular to polar, I have my x and y, and we know our magnitude was 5, so our r is 5, and 0.93 is our theta in radians. How can I get from this polar coordinate to rectangular coordinates? So we know that x is equal to r cosine theta, and we know that our r is 2, and cosine of theta is -1. If we begin here and go counterclockwise pi radians, our cosine of pi is -1, or the x value of this Cartesian coordinate pair, or rectangular pair. So 2 times -1 is -2. And we also know that y is equal to r sine theta. So that's equal to 2 times sine of pi. Now if we come back to our unit circle and travel pi radians again, our sine value is 0. So 2 times 0 is 0. So our rectangular coordinate is -2, 0. Lastly, we need to talk about how to graph these polar coordinates. So it is slightly different than the rectangular form that you know, but it has a lot to do with the unit circle. So you start at the center, and we know that our magnitude is 2, so I'm going to draw 2 circles. But these circles continue on toward to as infinitely many as you want, so maybe let's go ahead and draw 3. So what I do is I go out 1, 2 in magnitude, and then I travel counterclockwise pi radians, which is right here. So I draw a little line, and then that point is going to be right here, and that would be my coordinate in polar form. Similarly, if I start at the origin, and I'm just going to draw 2 circles this time, but now my magnitude is -2, so I go left 1, 2, and then I travel pi radians counterclockwise, so this way, and so my point would be right here. Lastly, I start at my origin and I draw 2 circles, and my magnitude is 2, so 1, 2, and then my theta is -pi, so I travel -pi radians to right here, and that would be where my point is, right here. So when graphing, the thing to remember is that if your r, or your magnitude, is positive, you go right, and if it's negative, you go left. And if your theta is positive, then you go counterclockwise, and if it's negative, you go clockwise.